Okay, let's be real. Guy poses, a crazy ghost thing appears, and starts aura farming. Is that a JoJo stand? Is that a persona? Sometimes they feel interchangeable, right? If you've watched the bizarre adventure that is JoJo or ground through Persona's very repetitive and grueling dungeons, you've seen it all before. Ghost projections punching hard, often named after 90s and 80s rock bands, JoJo stands are your fighting spirit made real, stopping time like the world, healing like Crazy Diamond, or just rapid fire punching like Star Platinum. Pure aura forming. Then you've got personas, pieces of your mind from myths and legends, casting spells like Orpheus, running through bosses like Izanagi no Okami. It's representing psychological stuff in some mental world. Cool, but different. Still, the basic concept looks similar. Both invisible to non-persona or stand users, grant immense powers, and act as lifelines. It made me wonder, are JoJo stands and personas the same? Are they the same but with different paint jobs? While they seem similar, how they work, their origins, their meaning, it's complicated. Bizarre even. You see, the intense stand users and dramatic persona summons, similar energy, different execution. So today we're breaking it down. We'll look at origins, function similarities, differences, and of course, who's stronger? Could Star Platinum deck Izanagi no Okami? Could Golden Experience Requiem outsmart anyone from Persona? It's gonna be fun as we dive into the weird, wild world of stands and personas. Alright, let's kick things off with the persona side of things. If you've played the games, you know the basics of what a persona is. They have dramatic summonings, a cool monster appears and starts fighting for you. But what is a persona really? I think it's important to note that the concept of personas were originally from Shin Megami Tensei. In SMT, these personas are demons, but in Persona, a persona is your inner self given form. You can think of it as reaching into your soul, grabbing a chunk of your personality, your hidden strengths, your defense mechanisms, and pulling out into the real world, or at least the cognitive world, as a fighting entity. It's like your spirit animal, but way more complicated and usually based on some obscure god or demon. The games are absolutely in reference, or they're based on Jungian psychology. Carl Gustav Jung, the creator of this said psychology, was a Swiss psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and psychologist who founded the school of analytical psychology. I just ripped it off Google. Who came up with a bunch of concepts that Atlas basically built this series on. For the persona itself, Jung described this as the social mask we wear. It's the personality we project to fit in, to deal with society, kind of like your public profile. It helps us function, but it's not our entire self. In the games, this mask becomes literal power. For the shadows, this is the flip side. Everything we repress, deny, or dislike about ourselves. Our insecurities, our darker impulses, the stuff we don't want to admit, is a part of us. In Persona 3, 4, and 5, confronting your shadow self is usually a huge step in personal growth and often how party members awaken their own personas. It's like looking in a really ugly mirror and saying, yeah, that's a part of me too. Another concept is the collective unconscious. Jung believed that beneath our personal unconscious, there's a deeper layer shared by all humanity, filled with universal symbols, myths, and archetypes passed down through generations. In Persona, this is basically the sea of souls, the primordial soup where all human thought, emotion, myths, gods, and demons originate. It's the dimensions personas come from and where cognitive worlds like mementos or the TV world tap into. So how do you get one of these personas? It's not like you can download them like how you download RAM back in the day, right? Does anybody still believe that? It almost always involves intense psychological pressure, trauma, or a near-death experience that forces you to confront who you really are. From Persona 3 onwards, the big trigger for your party members is usually facing their own shadow, that twisted, often grotesque version of themselves spouting uncomfortable truths in a personalized dungeon. Although in Persona 3, it's not really facing your own shadow, but facing a near-death situation kind of thing. Accepting that shadow, acknowledging those repressed feelings and flaws instead of running away, is what unlocks their potential and awakens their persona. It's a powerful metaphor for self-acceptance. Before P3 in Persona 1 and 2, it was a bit different. Sometimes it involved making contracts with demons or being granted the power by Philemon, a generally benevolent being from the Sea of Souls representing human potential. The modern games internalize this process much more. Once awakened, the persona is that mask, but weaponized. It's the strength you gain from self-understanding, used to fight other shadows. The hostile ones roaming the cognitive worlds, which are basically raw negative human emotions given form, often feeding off the collective negativity. The specific persona someone gets isn't random. It usually reflects their personality, their struggles, their tarot arcana like Lovers for Yukari, Chariot for Chie, Emperor for Kanji, or their role in the story. Izanagi, Yu Narukami's first persona, is a creator god from Japanese myth who starts things off, mirroring Yu's journey. Carmen, Anne's persona, is a passionate, rebellious opera character, reflecting Anne's own struggles against oppression. Take Mikazuchi, Kanji's persona, is a powerful god of thunder and swords, representing the raw, aggressive strength Kanji projects, but also hinting at the finer skills underneath. And then there's the protagonist. You, the player character, are always the wild card. This isn't just a gameplay gimmick. It represents someone with infinite potential, capable of forming numerous bonds and understanding many different facets of a human heart, represented by social links or confidants. This unique potential allows you to hold multiple personas simultaneously, switching between them in battle. You collect new ones, usually through negotiation or post-battle rewards. And crucially, you can fuse them in the Velvet Room, the blue ethereal space run by the long-nosed Igor and his attendant, Elizabeth, Theodore, Margaret, Lavenza, etc., is where you combine 2 or more personas to create new, often stronger ones, passing down skills in the process. Everyone else in your party, they get their one signature persona. Personas can evolve later on, like Izanagi becoming Izanagi no Okami or Orpheus becoming Messiah, but that usually only happens after major character development, symbolizing their growth and solidified identity. So what can personas actually do? They have elemental magic like Agi Fire, Bufu Ice, Zayo Electricity, Garu Wind, physical skills, almighty attacks, healing, they do buffs and debuffs, ailments, light and dark attacks, passives, and they have resistance and weaknesses. This whole system wasn't built in a day though. As time goes on, it changed a lot over the series. Going back to the roots, Persona 1 and its Revelations localization was way more darker, more like its parent series Shin Megami Tensei. Combat was grid-based, which felt very different mechanically. A huge difference was that anyone could potentially use multiple personas, completely changing team building. Summoning wasn't a dramatic character moment like later games. You got new personas mainly by negotiating with demons during battle, talking them into giving you their spell card, then fusing those cards in the Velvet Room. Philemon, a key figure representing human potential, granted the initial power. The story leaned heavily into cosmic horror and existential threats. In Persona 2, both Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment kept that darker vibe and the multi-persona system, but added its own unique twists. Negotiation was still key. The big new things was the rumor system. Literally spreading rumors could alter reality, creating items or dungeons, which is wild. The story remained heavy, focusing on Nyarla Thotep, Philemon's sinister counterpart. It also introduced fusion spells, powerful combo attacks using specific skills, adding another layer to combat. These games arguably have the most complex interwoven narratives in the entire series. Then came Persona 3, the game that basically rebooted the series' vibe and set the stage for everything that followed. Introduced the one person, one main persona rule except the MC, making personas feel more tied to individual identity. Summoning became super dramatic with the evokers. Shooting yourself wasn't just pretty edgy, it symbolized confronting death to unleash power, fitting the game's themes of mortality and apathy. Social links debuted, directly impacting fusion. higher rank meant more XP bonus, allowing fusion of higher level personas. The calendar system and daily life simulation became central. Tartarus was the main dungeon explored during the Dark Hour. Fatigue was a mechanic limiting exploration as well. Persona 4 then took the successful Persona 3 formula and refined it, leaning even harder into the character relationships and daily life. Summoning used tarot cards, reinforcing the Arcana theme. Awakening happened by confronting your shadow in a personalized TV world dungeon, directly linking gameplay to the theme of facing uncomfortable truths. Social links remained vital for fusion. The daily life sim aspect was expanded with more activities. The fog became a key environmental and narrative element. And finally, Persona 5 arrived, stylizing everything and weaving mechanics together even more tightly. The mask-ripping summoning screamed rebellion against societal constraints. A key change was the return of deep negotiation, but streamlined. You'd hold up shadows and recruit them directly, blending old-school negotiation with the modern one more system. Social links evolved into confidants, now packing more gameplay punches with tangible benefits like baton pass, crafting, extra negotiation options, making relationships feel even more vital. Palaces, representing specific villains' distorted desires, replaced the more randomized dungeons for main story arcs, while mementos acted as the sprawling collective unconscious dungeon. So all in all, personas are weaponized pieces of your psyche, rooted in Jungian theory. Masks, shadows, collective unconscious, or sea of souls. They're drawn from myths awakened by confronting your inner darkness or facing extreme stress and used to battle negative emotions in cognitive realms. They offer a massive range of powers. Elemental, physical, healing, buffs, debuffs, passives, with crucial strengths and weaknesses. The concept evolved dramatically from the occult, negotiation-heavy P1, P2 to the social link or calendar-focused P3, P4 with dramatic awakenings, and finally to the stylish rebellion and confident-driven P5 with its palaces and streamlined negotiation. Got all that? Awesome. Now we move on to the next part, which are JoJo Stands. Before we continue on to JoJo, let's go over today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Tokyo Treat. Tokyo Treat is a fun and exclusive monthly snack box packed with Japan's coolest and craziest treats. Each month, you'll get a rare Kit Kat flavor, limited edition chips, noodles, and the latest treats from Japan straight to you. For the month of June, the theme is Konbini Snackin'. Open up the box and you'll get the cultural booklet, which features snack descriptions, allergen information, and fun insights about Japanese culture. With Konbini Snackin', you'll get to experience Japan's amazing convenience stores with this month's pack with konbini treats and easy-to-eat treats. My favorites are these chocolate-covered almonds, the Kit Kat, and these sweet and sour gummies. Delicioso! So, what are you waiting for? Get your own snack box using the link in the description and pinned comment down below, or use the code NEROGORO for $5 of your first Tokyo Treat snack box. Thank you to Tokyo Treat for sponsoring this video. Let's get on with it. This is going to be a bizarre adventure, as you might say. You've seen stands in action, but what are they? And to really get that, we gotta take a quick detour to JoJo Parts 1 and 2. Back in Part 1, Phantom Blood, and Part 2, Battle Tendency, the main power system wasn't about ghostly companions. It was all about Hamon, also known as the Ripple. Think of Hamon as a special breathing technique that allows the user to channel their life energy into sunlight-like power. This was super effective against the vampires, zombies, and eventually the godlike pillar men that Jonathan Joestar and his grandson Joseph Joestar had to fight. To use Hamon, you needed intense training and discipline, focusing your breathing to produce an energy that could be conducted through objects, your own body, or even liquids. Jonathan used it to supercharge his punches, walk on water, and heal injuries. Joseph, being the trickster that he was, got way more creative, using Hamon to magnetize objects, conduct it through a freaking rope, or even use clackers as deadly weapons. Characters like Baron Zeppeli, Lisa, and Cesar Zeppeli were all masters of this art. Hamon was cool, very martial artsy, and had its own sets of rules and limitations. It required constant breathing, was less effective in darkness, obviously since it mimics sunlight, and while versatile, the types of powers you can get from it were somewhat limited to variations of energy-infused attacks or body enhancement. So why the change? Why did Hirohiko Araki, the mad genius behind JoJo, decide to introduce stands in Part 3 Stardust Crusaders? It felt like Hamon had run its course in terms of creative potential for fight scenes. Maybe Araki himself felt that he wanted a power system that was more visually dynamic and allowed for a much wider, crazier range of abilities. He wanted powers that could be anything. Stopping time, controlling fire, turning people into books, you name it. Now, obviously this is just much speculation, but I think it's a logical conclusion on why Hamon was not used anymore in parts 3 and so on. Stands offered that infinite canvas. Instead of just the user having powers, now they had a visual representation of that power, a stand, that could act independently to a degree and have a unique design and ability. This opened the door for incredibly strategic and often bizarre fights, where the powers themselves were like puzzles to be solved. It allowed for more diverse character concepts too, since a stand's ability could be anything, not just an extension of physical martial prowess. The in-universe explanation for this shift is tied to the re-emergence of Dio. When Dio, having stolen Jonathan Joestar's body, developed his stand, the World, it triggered a sort of psychic resonance down the Joestar bloodline, awakening stands in Joseph Joestar, Hermit Purple, Jotaro Kujo, Star Platinum, and later Yosuke Higashikata, and Jolin Kujo. The introduction of the stand arrow then provided a more widespread method for others to awaken stands. So while Hamon still existed, stands became the dominant power system, paving the way for the series' signature creativity and absurdity. So what is a stand, conceptually speaking? At its most basic, a stand is a visual manifestation of a person's innate life energy, their fighting spirit, or even their psyche. Now, life energy here isn't just about being biologically alive, it's a more potent, almost spiritual force, the very essence that animates them and, by extension, their stand. It's the raw fuel that powers these bizarre abilities, often implying that stand users possess a certain inherent vitality or spiritual strength that the stand arrow can unlock. Your fighting spirit is more than just aggression or a desire to throw down. It's the embodiment of your willpower, your unyielding determination, your drive to overcome any obstacle, or even your most profound desires and fears. It's that indomitable core that screams, "I refuse to lose," even when the odds are stacked 1,000,000 to 1. Think of Jotaro Kujo. His stoic, almost unbreakable resolve is perfectly embodied in the overwhelming power and precision of Star Platinum. Or consider Yosuke Higashikata. His usually laid-back demeanor hides a fierce, protective loyalty, and that duality shines through in Crazy Diamond, a stand that can both brutally pummel an enemy and meticulously restore what's broken. And when we say psyche, we're diving into the deeply personal and unique fabric of an individual. A stand is, in many ways, an externalized reflection of the user's core, being their personality traits, their mental state, their ambitions, their passions, sometimes even their hidden flaws, neuroses, or obsessions. This is why no two stands are ever truly identical, barring some very specific alternate universe exceptions and The World and Star Platinum. For instance, Rohan Kishibe's obsessive nature as a manga artist and his desire to understand people for authentic storytelling manifests as Heaven's Door, allowing him to literally read people like books. Similarly, Tonio Trussardi's passion for culinary arts and his genuine desire to heal people through food is perfectly encapsulated in his stand, Pearl Jam, which infuses his dish with restorative properties. Even a villain like Yoshikage Kira, whose deepest desire is a quiet life, free of attachments, but who cannot suppress his murderous impulses, has Killer Queen, a stand that can create bombs to eliminate evidence and victims without a trace, reflecting his twisted priorities. Think of it as your soul's bodyguard, but it's so much more than just a passive guardian. It's like your unique personal superpower given a tangible, often humanoid, but sometimes stand's wildly abstract or even grotesque form. Unlike a persona, which is often based on an existing mythological figure you equip or summon, after a significant psychological breakthrough related to societal masks, a stand is fundamentally you, or at least a core potent part of your spiritual makeup made external and controllable. Their appearances are as varied and bizarre as human imagination itself. You've got the iconic muscular punch ghosts like Star Platinum or the World that radiate raw, destructive power. Slender, armored, and precise warriors like Silver Chariot built for lightning-fast swordplay. And then stands that defy any easy categorization. Some are swarms of tiny independent units like Shigechi's Harvest, perfect for things like reconnaissance, gathering in overwhelming numbers. Others are bound to objects, turning an ordinary car into the monstrous predatory wheel of fortune, or a simple sword into a sentient skill-learning Anubis. Some stands don't even have a distinct body, but manifest as a peculiar phenomenon, like a patch of sentient grass as seen with Angelo's aqua necklace in its initial form, or something like surface mimicking people. It can also be an ability integrated directly into the user's own physiology, like Foo Fighters, who is their stand, a colony of intelligent plankton inhabiting a human corpse. This visual diversity is absolutely key to JoJo's unique aesthetic and storytelling. They aren't just ghosts, they can be incredibly solid and interact with the physical world with devastating force, or they can be more ethereal, imposing strange rules or reality-bending effects rather than throwing a single punch. The strength and effectiveness of a stand are also intrinsically tied to the user's mental fortitude, their willpower, and crucially their cleverness and creativity in applying its unique ability. A user who is scared, hesitant, or unsure might find their stand weaker, less responsive, or its abilities faltering. Conversely, a surge of desperate determination, a moment of pure unadulterated rage, or a flash of brilliant insight can push a stand to perform feats that seemed impossible moments before. Koichi Hirose's Echoes literally evolves through multiple ACTs, as Koichi himself grows as a person, finds his courage, and hones his resolve in the face of danger. It's not just about having an objectively powerful stand, it's about having the spirit and the strategic smarts to unlock and exploit its true potential. Many iconic JoJo battles aren't won by the stand with the highest destructive power stat, but by the user who outwits their opponent, exploiting their stand's unique, often niche, ability with breathtaking creativity and unpredictable tactics. So how do you get one of these stands now that we're in the stand era? Well, the stand arrow is the big one, the most common method we see. These mysterious arrows crafted from a meteorite that landed in Greenland can unlock a stand in someone they pierce. If they survive, that is. If you're not strong enough mentally or spiritually, the arrow can just straight up kill you. It's a high stakes gamble, and if you do awaken a stand and then get pierced by the arrow again, your stand might evolve into a Requiem stand, which is basically God tier broken like Golden Experience Requiem. Besides the arrow, some folks are natural born users like Avdol or Kakyoin apparently had their stands from a very young age, like winning the genetic lottery for weird ghost powers. Then there's inheritance, as stand abilities can be sometimes passed down through bloodlines, the Joestar family being the prime example after Dio's stand awakened theirs. In the alternate universe of Part 7 and 8, things change up with the Devil's Palm or Corpse Parts. The Devil's Palms are mysterious areas granting stands, and later the Saint's Corpse Parts become a major source of stand abilities. Now, what are the rules? Because JoJo, despite its absurdity, loves its rules. Generally, only other stand users can see stands, meaning to a regular person, a stand user fighting might look like they're having a seizure while objects fly around them. A pretty firm rule is one stand per user. You get one, that's your guy, with extremely rare exceptions for villains with plot-breaking abilities. A huge rule is damage transfer. If a stand gets hurt, the user gets hurt in the exact same way and vice versa, making fights incredibly personal and dangerous. Through some automatic or long-range stands can bypass this a bit. Just like your favorite RPG character, stands also have stand stats. Araki gives them official ratings from A, excellent, to E, very weak, in power, speed, range, durability, precision, and potential. A stand with high potential might start weak, but become incredibly versatile. And of course, one of JoJo's most iconic quirks is the musical references. Most stands, especially from part 4 onwards, are named after rock bands, songs, albums, or musicians. It's a huge part of the fun. Stands aren't all just buff ghosts punching each other though. The sheer variety is what makes them so cool. You've got your classic close range power types like Star Platinum or Crazy Diamond who excel at direct combat with high power and speed, but limited range. Then there are long range or automatic stands such as Sheer Heart Attack or Black Sabbath, which can operate far from their user, sometimes acting on their own based on set conditions, making the user safer but with less direct control. Things get really weird and creative with phenomenon-based or role-based stands, like Rohan Kishibe's Heaven's Door, which turns people into books, or Tamami Kobayashi's The Lock, which manifests guilt as a physical burden. These don't punch, but impose specific effects. Some stands are bound stands tied to objects and granting them unusual properties like strength, which is bound to a fighter ship, or Wheel of Fortune bound to a car. Others are tool stands or object stands, meaning the stands are objects, often weapons like Whole Horse's Gun Stand, Emperor, or Boingo's predictive comic book, Toth. We also see ACT stands like Koichi Hirose's Echoes or Johnny Joestar's Tusk, which are unique stands that can evolve and change forms, gaining new abilities through multiple ACTs. And if that wasn't enough, there are Requiem stands. If a worthy stand user is pierced again by a stand arrow, their stand can transform into a Requiem stand like Golden Experience Requiem or Chariot Requiem, which are insanely powerful and often with reality warping abilities related to the user's deepest desire at the moment. The concept of stands wasn't static either, it evolved with the series. Part 3 is where stands were born, mostly as relatively straightforward combat types with tarot card names. In Part 4, stands became much more diverse and integrated into the slice of life mystery setting, with the musical naming convention really taking off. Part 5 saw fights become more strategic and team-based, with stands having abilities that often complemented each other and became even more complex. By part 6, Araki went full-blown abstract with stands like Weather Report and Made in Heaven, pushing the boundaries of what a stand could be. Finally, in the alternate universe of part 7 and part 8, stands are still the core power system, but their origins are explored differently, and many abilities are incredibly specific, often tied to the user's profession or unique circumstances, with the spin technique also interacting with stands in interesting ways. So basically, JoJo stands are visual manifestations of life energy or fighting spirit, usually gained via a stand arrow or other specific means. Only stand users see them, damage is shared, and one person usually. Musical names are cool and their powers range from punching ghosts to rewrite reality. They've evolved from simple combat tools to incredibly diverse and bizarre abilities that define JoJo's unique flavor. Alright, we've explored personas and JoJo stands. On the surface, you see a character, a cool ghostly figure pops up behind him, and then shit goes down. So yeah, it's easy to see why we can lump them together. But are they really just two sides of the same coin? Let's break down these similarities first because there are some, before we dive into why they're actually worlds apart. First point of contention, both personas and stands are essentially manifestations of some kind of inner power or spirit, an internal force given external form. Personas, as we've discussed, are quite literally facets of your psyche, the masks you wear, your inner self, shaped by experiences and often drawn from the collective well of human myth. Think of it as your subconscious deciding to cosplay as a god or demon to help you out. Stands, on the other hand, are described as a materialization of your life energy, your raw fighting spirit, or your unique psychic wavelength. It's less about collectively understood archetype and more about your distinct spiritual signature taking shape. So whether it's your soul taking a mythological form or your fighting spirit deciding to look like a buff purple dude, it's something fundamental from within the user emerging as an often combative spiritual companion. They're like your soul's own personal bodyguard or your ultimate special attack, ready to be unleashed. Another major point of overlap is that both are generally invisible to ordinary people. Your average Joe walking down the street in Shibuya isn't going to see Joker's persona dramatically appearing, nor are they going to witness Jotaro's Star Platinum delivering a lightning-fast beatdown in the streets of Cairo. This shared characteristic immediately creates a hidden world vibe in both series. The users are privy to a reality that others can't perceive, which naturally leads to some hilarious or baffling situations where non-users are left completely bewildered by characters seemingly fighting invisible enemies or reacting to thin air. This secrecy also fosters a sense of camaraderie among fellow users. They're the only ones who truly get what's going on. Furthermore, they both grant their users unique powers and abilities that catapult them far beyond the realm of normal human capabilities. For Persona users, this means wielding elemental magic like Agi and Zio, healing allies, or inflicting debilitating status effects, all drawn from the Persona's mythological identity. For Stan users, the sky's the limit, from stopping time and manipulating space to more esoteric powers like rewriting reality through a comic book or controlling luck. Whether it's slinging fireballs, freezing time, mending grievous wounds in seconds, or even turning people into snails, these entities are the wellspring of the user's supernatural prowess. Without their persona or stand, our heroes and villains would, for the most part, be just regular folks, albeit often with strong personalities or unusual circumstances. And of course, a crucial similarity is that they fight alongside their user, often acting as their primary weapon, shield, and ultimate problem solver. They're not just passive auras or abstract power sources, they are active, often dynamic participants in battles. In Persona, you're strategically choosing your persona skills in a turn-based system. In JoJo, the stand is an extension of the user's will in often fast-paced, brutal encounters, taking commands and sometimes even exhibiting a degree of independent thought or instinct to protect their user. That image of a spectral guardian ready to throw down at a moment's notice is potent and visually striking in both series. Visually, especially when you look at the more humanoid stands like Star Platinum or Crazy Diamond and many of the iconic personas like Izanagi or Orpheus, there can be a definite resemblance in that guardian spirit aesthetic. They often float or stand imposingly behind or beside their user, radiating power. Beyond just looking cool, both personas and stands can reflect deep aspects of the user's personality, their internal struggles, their core beliefs, or even their destiny. A character's persona isn't just a random summon. Its design, its arcana, and its mythological basis often tie directly into their personal journey and the themes of their story. Similarly, a stand's appearance and its unique, often bizarre ability are deeply intertwined with the user's character. Jotaro's stoic power is Star Platinum. Josuke's kindness and occasional rage is Crazy Diamond. They aren't just tools, they mean something profound about who the user is. So yeah, at a glance, totally see the confusion. Both are your spiritual battle buddy, your invisible friend who can punch really hard or warp reality. But that's where the broad strokes end and the fascinating nitty-gritty differences begin, which really set them apart. This is where it gets interesting, because despite those surface level similarities, stands and personas operate on fundamentally different wavelengths. First off, their core concept and origin are distinct. As we hammered home, personas are deeply rooted in Jungian psychology. They are the masks people wear, facets of their psyche drawn from the collective unconscious, often representing mythological figures, gods, or demons that symbolize universal archetypes. Awakening a persona, especially for party members in the modern games, usually involves a profound psychological breakthrough, often by confronting and accepting one's shadow self, their repressed insecurities and desires. It's a journey of self-discovery and acceptance, an internal process made external. Stands, while also tied to life energy or fighting spirit, are less about specific psychological archetypes and more about a unique, inherent spiritual fighting power bursting forth. Their origin is often an external catalyst, being pierced by a stand arrow, a mystical artifact, or through genetic inheritance like the Joestar lineage, reacting to Dio's awakening. Exposure to a strange phenomenon like the Devil's Palms or the Saint's Corpse parts in the later JoJo parts also serve this purpose. While a stand reflects the user's psyche and willpower, it's not explicitly a mask or a shadow in the Jungian sense. It's more like your soul's unique superpower suddenly being unlocked by an outside force, rather than being cultivated through internal psychological struggle and integration. Then there's matter of number and acquisition. With personas, the protagonist always has a special wildcard, capable of holding, collecting, and even fusing multiple personas together in the Velvet Room. This is a core gameplay mechanic, representing their adaptability and their capacity to understand many facets of the human heart, often strengthened through social links or confidants. Other party members, however, typically have one signature persona which might evolve once or twice if they undergo significant personal growth, symbolizing a new stage of self-understanding. Stands, on the other hand, adhere to a very strict one stand per user rule, with extremely rare plot-specific exceptions usually reserved for main villains pulling off some reality-breaking shenanigans. You don't collect stands, you don't fuse stands to make new ones. You get your stand, your one unique ability, and that's your spiritual toolkit for life. Its power might develop, or you might discover more creative ways to use it, but you're not swapping it out for another model. The very nature of their powers and mechanics also sets them miles apart. Persona powers are often, though not exclusively, based on a recognizable system of elemental magic: fire, ice, wind, electricity, alongside physical attacks, healing spells, and a wide array of buff and debuff abilities. There's a strong emphasis on exploiting elemental weaknesses and resistances, and managing a resource like SP or skill points to cast these abilities. Combat is frequently turn-based and highly strategic, feeling very much like a classic JRPG. Stand abilities? They are wildly diverse and often incredibly specific, sometimes bordering on the utterly absurd. They range from straightforward super strength and speed like Star Platinum to complex reality-bending or rule-based powers like Rohan's Heaven's Door, Giorno's Golden Experience, or Diavolus King Crimson. There's no universal resource like SP for stands. Their use is often tied to the user's stamina or mental state, or the specific conditions of the stand's ability. Fights are less about elemental charts and more about a deadly chess match of understanding and outsmarting an opponent's incredibly unique, often bizarre, stand ability. A defining JoJo mechanic not really present in Persona in the same direct one-to-one way is the damage transfer rule. If the stand is hurt, the user is hurt, and vice versa, making every blow landed on a stand a direct hit on its user. Their thematic focus also diverges significantly. The Persona games heavily emphasize social connections, with social links or confidence directly powering up your fusion abilities and often forming the emotional core of the narrative. Themes of personal growth, understanding oneself and others, and often overcoming societal ills or personal traumas through the strength of these bonds and self-discovery are paramount. It's very much about the internal journey and how that journey is shaped by and shapes your relationships with the people around you. JoJo, while characters certainly grow and have their own arcs, often places more emphasis on the bizarre adventure itself. The creative, strategic, and often brutal applications of unique powers in high-stakes battles take center stage alongside grand themes of fate, lineage, destiny, and the sheer audacity of human and sometimes non-human willpower. The fights are intricate puzzles, and the solutions are frequently as outlandish and unpredictable as the problems themselves. When it comes to evolution and development, personas and stands take different paths. The wildcard protagonist's arsenal of personas evolves constantly through the process of fusion and by leveling them up to learn new skills. Party members' signature personas can undergo a significant evolution, like Chie's Tomoe becoming Suzuka Gongen, typically after a major breakthrough in their character arc, symbolizing their personal growth and newfound resolve. For stands, generally a stand's core ability is fixed from the moment it awakens. Growth usually comes from the user's increasing mastery, deeper understanding, and more creative or precise application of that existing ability. There are notable exceptions like ACT stands such as Koichi's Echoes or Joni Joestar's Tusk, which explicitly evolve through distinct stages, gaining new and different abilities as the user develops. And then there's the super rare Requiem phenomenon, where a stand pierced again by a stand arrow can transform and gain a new, often godlike ability tied to the user's most desperate need or desire at that moment. But these are specific, often plot-critical cases, not the standard path of development. Finally, even their naming conventions highlight their different inspirations. Personas are consistently named after after figures from global mythology, folklore, literature, and religion. Izanagi, Arsene, Odin, Alice, Lucifer, and so on. This directly ties back to the Jungian concept of the collective unconscious being a repository of these archetype figures. Stands, on the other hand, were initially named after tarot cards in Part 3, like Star Platinum, The World, and Magician's Red. However, from Part 4 onwards, they are overwhelmingly and iconically named after Western popular music bands, songs, and albums, giving us gems like Crazy Diamond from Pink Floyd, Killer Queen from Queen, Sticky Fingers, The Rolling Stones, Made in Heaven from Queen again, and countless others. This is just one of Hirohiko Araki's many distinctive stylistic choices that gives JoJo its unique flavor. So while both personas and stands tap into that cool spiritual manifestation of power vibe, they come from different conceptual places and serve different narratives and gameplay functions, if you can call that. Personas are your inner world, your psychology, and your relationships made into tools for growth and battle. Stands are your unique soul power, your fighting spirit unleashed in the most bizarre and creative ways imaginable. Think of it like this: if your persona is your therapist helping you fight your inner demons, your stand is your eccentric, superpowered best friend who helps you win a street fight by turning the pavement into pudding. Both awesome, both useful, but definitely different dudes. Now we get to the fun but short part. Which one is stronger? Before we even try to tackle this, let's get one thing straight. Comparing power levels across two completely different fictional universes with their own unique rules, power scaling, and frankly levels of absolute bullshittery is a recipe for a headache. It's like asking if Goku can beat Saitama type shit question, you know? But that's never stopped us from having the argument. It's fun to think about. So let's try to break down what stronger could even mean here. Top tier personas, especially for protagonists or antagonists, pack serious firepower, often being literal gods, demons, or abstract concepts. A big argument for persona power is their high-end feats. Wildcards at their peak summon personas for insane stuff, fighting reality-threatening beings. Protagonists with ultimate personas, fueled by social links or confidence, go toe-to-toe with these threats. Satanael shoots God in Persona 5. Izanagi no Okami banishes despair in Persona 4. World Arcana personas grant reality-warping power to beat omnipotent foes. Serious, universe-saving stuff. The versatility of the wildcard is key. Protagonists switch between hundreds of personas with varied affinities, attacks, resistances, and support skills. This adaptability is a massive advantage, offering tactical flexibility against diverse threats. You need a nuke or heal? They have a persona for it. Personas also unleash elemental and status mayhem with a vast arsenal of elemental attacks, and many nasty status ailments. Exploiting weaknesses or using status effects can be a game changer, potentially ending fights quickly. Cheesy but true, the power of bonds is a real factor as well. Persona links power, especially the protagonists, to social connections. Stronger bonds mean stronger personas via fusion, with ultimate personas from max relationships depicted as incredibly potent, underscoring their immense potential. On the JoJo side, things get bizarre. The unbridled creativity means a stand could be literally anything with any power imaginable, from subtle manipulation to reality-shattering effects. While not always matching Persona's raw destructive power, stands terrify with specific reality-defining hacks born from this limitless potential. Their capacity for time, space, and reality warping is huge. Top-tier stands defy conventional rules. The World or Star Platinum stop time, a win condition. King Crimson erases time, making Diavolo intangible and unpredictable. Pucci's Made in Heaven accelerates time to reset the universe. Golden Experience Requiem reverts any action or willpower to zero. An ultimate defense, arguably one of fiction's most broken abilities, trapping foes in death loops. D4C Love Train redirects misfortune, making Valentine invulnerable. These are fundamental manipulations of existence. Many of the these stands have instant win abilities if their conditions are met regardless of opponent's power. Death 13 dominates in dreams. Jailhouse Lock cripples memory, making strategy impossible. Bohemian Rhapsody unleashes fictional characters, causing chaos. Caught by such insidious abilities, persona stats or resistances might be useless. Combat stands like Star Platinum boast incredible speed and precision, often faster than bullets, delivering hundreds of precise punches in seconds. This speed is a major advantage against slower foes or those with casting times. Crucially, user skill and mentality define JoJo fights, which are about outsmarting, not just overpowering. A weaker stand with a clever, determined user can beat a stronger one. User willpower is huge. Doubt weakens a stand. Resolve pushes it beyond limits. Classic shonen tropes with bizarre strategies. So who ultimately wins in the end? I think it depends. These are such varied powers and distinct universes. Too many variables. For me personally, I would think JoJo Stands would win just because there is basically no limit to these stands' powers and what this stand could be. Specific matchups are key. An elemental persona user struggles against Golden Experience Requiem's nullification. A physical stand user might be beaten by a persona's ranged status effects or lack of physical weaknesses. Knowledge and prep time are crucial as well. Does the persona user know the stand's esoteric ability? Does the stand user understand personas, weaknesses, or wildcard tactics? Prior knowledge is huge. The arena matters as well. Metaverse or Palace favors personas with cognitive rules. The physical world might give stands an edge with surprise and jarring reality bending. Of course, which versions as well. Endgame persona protagonists versus mid-tier stand users, regular stands versus an early P3 protagonist, power levels fluctuate wildly. A freshly awakened persona user versus a seasoned stand user differs from Izanagi no Okami versus a Requiem stand, for example. An average persona user versus an average stand user is a toss-up, down to exploiting weaknesses or suitability. Peak versus peak like Satanael versus Golden Experience Requiem. Golden Experience Requiem likely nullifies Satanael, but a persona user with almighty attacks might overwhelm a stand with tricky physical defense. Ultimately, personas, especially for wildcards, are broader, adaptable, generically powerful toolkits with diverse options. Stands are highly specialized, incredibly potent, sometimes broken specific abilities. It's like a god summoning Swiss Army knife versus specialized surgical tools, one being a reality-erasing lightsaber. And that's about it. JoJo stands and personas aren't really similar if you really look deep into it. Of course, they're two spiritual entities that can only be seen by persona users and stand users. They hold immense power, they all look cool, and they could be pretty bizarre. Ultimately, their concepts are the same, but what they are different. Anyways, that's about for this video. This is a long ass video, I'll tell you that much. What do you think? Miss anything? Who's stronger in your book? Drop your thoughts, hot takes, and well, actuallys in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Also support the channel by buying this sponsor, please. That is all. I'll see you.